Wakey, wakey, good morning. And many thanks indeed for joining us on AM Live today, the 20th of May, 2019. I have with me Jeremiah Kioni, who is a member of parliament from Daragwa, also the chair of COC. Good to see you, sir.
Good morning, Debarl.
Good morning to you. How are you?
Good to see
you. We missed you last Monday.
And I was away to India.
Yes. I'm given to understand you are one of the observers as the chair of the COC.
Yes, we were given that opportunity to go and observe the Indian elections. And I think it's one of the wonders of the world.
Wonders of the world.
Where you have 900 million voters.
900. That is registered voters.
1,004,000 polling stations. 12 million staff engaged by the Elections Commission of India to oversee the elections, and only with 3 commissioners.
3 commissioners?
Only 3 commissioners.
That is a big learning point for Kenya.
It's really something that we really need to learn from. It was a very useful thing for us.
Yes.
There is also immense respect for police officers. But I think it's also important to mention that among the 12 million staff who had been engaged,
yes,
majority of them were civil servants, senior civil servants who had frontiered. They really are required to frontier. No pay. And some of them are magistrates. And immediately after the exercise, they resume their usual duties. The others are just frontiers from the public. And you can imagine 900 million voters. It's a whole continent of Africa.
It's a whole continent.
Being managed by 3 commissioners.
3 commissioners. I think we
shall... of the world.
We shall... Wonders of the world, truly, as you say it. But we shall come back to you with that, of course, when we're doing our international news. And we just want also to hack back into last week and find out what happened as far as politics is concerned. Fake gold scam is top of the agenda as well. Many politicians also dragged into it as well. But where is the truth? So now this has become a political fodder for some of our politicians here in the country as well. Right. Also, the KQ has a new fresh breath of air. We'll see what that particular report from the Public Accounts Committee will be having for us as well. We shall put that also on the table and square it out with our panelists this morning. We have Jeremiah Kioni, we're expecting this morning also Professor Anyang' Nyong'o, who's the governor of Kisumu, also Kongo Omogeni, who's the senator of Nyamira. Also, we are expecting to be with us this morning, the senator of West Pokot. This is Samuel Pogisio. But for now, we see the good, the bad, and the ugly in our dailies today, beginning with the Daily Nation. This is your splash today. Fresh off the press, Raila's vague steps put ODM in a fix. Atem Odinga is putting his political party in a dilemma over 2022 polls, is how we have it today on the front page of the Daily Nation today. Just to zoom out, this is how it looks today. It's all about politics, dilemma. The Orange Party leader and his handlers remain tight-lipped on whether or not he will vie for the presidency in 2022, and nobody within the party hierarchy is willing to contemplate the former PM's eventual exit from active national politics. This story continues on page 5 of the Daily Nation today, and we have also leaders here of the party. Some of them, Sifuna, one of them is saying our leader is not and has never been too busy for the party. There is nothing to worry about as he is fully in charge. Also, Sankok, the handshake was a clever ploy by President Uhuru Kenyatta to tame the opposition leader and reduce political noise. Also, Wandai says ODM is focused on establishing a democratic and accountable system of government that responds to the needs of the people. This, remember, is in light of what the report is having. That is the report by Catherine Muma that was presented to the National Executive Committee of ODM. And we shall be looking at that much later in the course of a program as far as party politics is concerned. Also, we can see ODM National Elections Board Chair Judy Pareno saying Mr. Odinga is the backbone of ODM. He has held it together for 13 years now, and we can only ask God to continue giving him the strength and wisdom to serve our party and the country. As I've mentioned, that story continues on page 5 of the Daily Nation today. Also, a sidebar story here. Sigh of relief for ex-minister and senator in Dad's probe. Detectives last evening released former Sports Cabinet Secretary Rashid Chesa and Kakamega Senator Cleopas Malala after holding them over the weekend for questioning regarding the serial killings of villagers by a ruthless criminal gang in Matungu, Kakamega County. You have this story continuing on page 2 or page 4 of the Daily Nation this morning. A quick look now at the Standard, and this is your splash today. Uhuru Raila meeting with Dubai Sheikh. It's all about crackdown today, as it's seen here on the sub-headline. Secret meeting between Dubai ruler President Kenyatta and Odinga in Dubai, where an audio recording was played, led to high-level security meeting that saw the president demand immediate action, leading to police operation witnessed now. This story continues on page 4 of The Standard today, and we have a bite here from Sheikh Al Maktoum, the ruler of Dubai, saying, quote-unquote, nevertheless, now we need your immediate and strong action to release the totality of Z Livia gold shipment to UAE as soon as possible, and according to the instructions by our general manager, Mr. Zandi, who is there in Kenya to organize the shipment. You can follow the story. This is a developing story. It continues on page 4 of The Standard today. Also, cash transactions in Matungu killings. Police say one of the politicians arrested in connection with the senseless killings in Matungu, Kakamega County, wired 150,000 to main suspects. It's all under probe, and you can follow this story also on page 8 of The Standard today. Gor Mahia, a step closer to trophy. It's all about football. League leaders Gor Mahia just need 2 more points to retain the Sportspacer Premier League trophy after thrashing at lackluster FC Leopards 3-1 at the Moi International Sports Centre, Kasarani. All that also is tucked away on page 44 of The Standard this morning. The Star is holding this splash for us today. Inside multi-billion empire on EACC radar. It's all about strategy. Commission discloses names of targeted state officials in court papers. Targets include 1.3 billion shillings from former Nairobi County Chief Finance Officer Jimmy Kiamba. And the story continues on page 4 and 5 of The Star. There is a standalone picture there, and we can see here, dancing for the Lord, it says. Deputy William Ruto joins Josephine, that is Kasichana, in a dance at St. Jude's Catholic Church, Mwanda, Bumula, Bungoma County. This was yesterday, and also you can follow the story inside The Star this morning. Also, I drank heavily for 20 years, CJ Maraga reveals. Right, clean and sober he is right now, but the story is tucked away on page 3 of The Star this morning. And the lobby deplores rising mob injustice in Mombasa. Counties rake in 1 billion shillings from patients seeking dialysis. That story continues on page 11. It's all about cash cow. You can follow all that inside The Star this morning. Let's take also a glance at what we have on the front page of the People Daily. Gold scam. Police hunt for Matiang'i. And that Matiang'i is, of course, an imposter there. Supercorn imposter mimicked CS, and with connivance of security and top government officials was able to dupe Dubai businessman. And you can follow this story on page 4 and 5 of the People Daily this morning. Let's see also what we have on the front page of Taifa Leo. I'll lift that quickly for you to just see what is holding for us. The Habu Bandia ya Mfaa Ruto. That is what we have as a splash today. Naibu Rais, wafuasi wake wajinufaisha kisiasa na sakata ya dhahabu feki kwa kuwahusisha Raila na Wetangula. Is a story that you want to follow on page 2 of Taifa Leo. Ramadhan yageuza Joho mhubiri. And it says Governor wa Mombasa Hassan Joho anayejulikana kwa ujasiri wake wa kisiasa na kupambana na yeyote yule ambaye agedhubutu kupambana naye, sasa amejigeuza mhubiri. You can follow the story on page 6 of Taifa Leo this morning. Also, pongezi atambuliwa kwa kupigania afya bora. And this is Mama Taifa Margaret Kenyatta akipokea hati ya ukumbusho kutoka kwa mkurugenzi wa shirika la afya duniani, that is WHO, Daktari Tedros Adhanom, kwa kuendesha kampeni kuhusu afya bora ulimwenguni wakati wa matembezi ya Walk the Talk Health for All Challenge jijini Geneva. And you can follow that story also inside Taifa Leo as well. This is how it looks, right? Taifa Leo also Miss Boom Boom amtia Messi Kishawishini, and you can follow that story on page 11 and 16 of Taifa Leo. Let's see what the Business Daily has for us today. We buckle down to business, and this is what you're waking up to. Jobs, it says, at stake as KEBS bans import of used car parts is splashed today. Kenya Bureau of Standards directive banning second-hand vehicle spare parts puts the livelihoods of thousands of traders on the line. Thousands of second-hand motor vehicle spare parts dealers are staring at a bleak future after Kenya Bureau of Standards moved to enforce a tough restriction on the importation of used car parts. The Standards Agency, it says here, in a notice sent out to pre-shipment cargo inspectors, has specified 17 categories of second-hand spare parts that are banned from entry into the country in a policy shift intended to rid the market of the used car parts. You can follow this story on page 4 of the Business Daily today. So these are thousands of jobs at stake there, and you can see also a related picture there. This is a second-hand spare parts shop at Grogan Garage in Nairobi on Friday. 17 categories of imported parts will be banned. Still on the front page of it, Business Daily, 27 global hotels announced Kenya entry plans. 27 global hotel brands have announced plans to open new or additional hospitality facilities in Kenya over the next 4 years, cementing the country's position as East Africa's business hub. The new hotels will bring to the market 4,232 new hotel rooms by 2023, according to disclosures made in the 2019 report of Hotel Chain Development Pipeline in Africa. The rest of the details, you have them also on page 4 of the Business Daily. Looking on the ticket there, 35 billion shillings for SGR loan repayment. The Treasury has revised its budget to include 35 billion shillings paid to China's Exim Bank for a loan it gave Kenya for construction of the Mombasa-Nairobi standard gauge railway. This story continues on page 6 of the Business Daily today. Also, housing finance borrows 1.9 billion shillings at 18%. Mortgage finance HF is servicing 2 loans worth 1.95 billion shillings at a rate of more than 18%, while lending at 10.72%, underlining the company's negative margins. You can follow the story on page 7 of the Business Daily. Eurobond, bad news for banks. The successful sale of a 210 billion shillings Eurobond should ease the government's domestic borrowing pressure and thus keep interest rates at their current multi-year lows in the short term. But this spells bad news for investors, especially banks, pension funds, insurance and unit trusts who have made a killing from treasuries. This story continues on page 19 of the Business Daily this morning. Let's cross the borders and we see what the Citizen is holding for us in Tanzania. This is what you're waking up to. If you're in Tanzania today, while levels of bad loans are falling among banks, is a splash today. In its endeavor to ensure that the banking industry remains sound and stable, Bank of Tanzania directed banks and financial institutions to write off or NPLs, which have remained in loss classification for more than a year. You have this story on page 3 of the Citizen today. Government says to redraft stalled 100 billion shillings SAG court grants scheme. You know about it. You can follow the story on page 2 of the Citizen in Tanzania. Also, Swedish minister in Dar es Salaam for fresh cooperation talks is another story you need to follow on page 5 of the Business of the Citizen in Tanzania. Senegalese wins Quran contest. You can follow this story here. President John Magufuli hands over a check for 20 million shillings to Mohamed El Mujaba Diallo of Senegal, who won the 20th Quran recitation competition after scoring 99.88 out of a possible 100 points at the National Stadium in Dar es Salaam yesterday. Others are also Chief Sheikh Abubakar Zubair bin Ali, Mana Bank Managing Director, that is Hussein Mahsoud, and retired President Jakaya Kikwete as well. You can follow the story on page 2 of the Citizen in Tanzania. Swahili version of the Citizen is Mwananchi, and that should be up next momentarily. There you go. John Pombe Magufuli, Saudia itatujengea chuo kikuu cha Kiislamu, and this was the occasion yesterday. You can see how they came out in force for this particular occasion yesterday. The caption reads, waumini wa dini ya Kiislamu, it says, wakiwa kwenye uwanja wa taifa jijini Dar es Salaam wakati wa mashindano ya 20 ya Quran tukufu Afrika iliyofanyika jana. You can follow that story also inside Mwananchi, and you know who won. That chap from Senegal. Also, Lugola, trafiki atakayepiga tochi yenye utata tukiona. That is what we have on page 6 of Mwananchi. In Uganda, you have the Daily Monitor, and this is what is on the front page of the Daily Monitor this morning. Nantaba, top state agents out to kill me, she says. And we can also read a bite here from Ida Nantaba herself, Minister of State for ICT. She says, I was, quote unquote, I was shocked when a highly placed person in security who was trying to hatch a plan to have me assassinated was promoted. And this was a shooting incident on March the 24th. Police shot dead Ronald Sebulime on allegations of trailing the minister. The force later recanted its earlier narrative that the deceased was armed and killed in firefight, admitting unusually that its officers killed the 40-year-old widower in cold blood. That story continues inside the Daily Monitor. In Uganda, also 30 feared dead in Lake Albert accident. That is another gory story there. The boat was transporting football players and fans from Fofo landing site in Buseruka sub-county to Runge landing site in Kigorobia sub-county in Hoima district. This story continues on page 3 of the Daily Monitor. In Uganda, Kingdom Shopping Mall opens to public. That all is tucked away inside the Metro magazine, a pull-out magazine inside the Daily Monitor if you're waking up in Uganda. Let's see what is happening in Rwanda this morning. And the New Times is up. Government earmarks 23 billion Rwandan francs for Development Bank of Rwanda recapitalization plan. That is what we have as a splash here. And you can read the rest of the details on page 8 of the New Times in Rwanda. 38 billion shillings also fertilizer plant to be operational this year is another story. And you can see a standalone picture here where we can see a mobile soil testing laboratories facility which was launched recently as part of a proposed fertilizer making factory. The factory is set to save the country billions of francs on the importation of fertilizers. You have this story continuing on page 18 of the New Times. Genocide widows to benefit from new loan guarantees. Also, you can follow that on page 2 of the New Times in Rwanda. And inside Rwanda's war on human trafficking, find out how they're dealing with it on page 3 of the New Times. Have you also seen the copy of the East African this week? This is how it looks, and that is your splash. Freedom suffers as African strongmen target NGOs. This is assault on civic space. Tanzania, Burundi, Rwanda, Uganda, South Sudan, Eritrea, Ethiopia before Abiy Ahmed, Omar al-Bashir, Sudan's, and al-Sisi, Egypt, are cited as countries that have since 2010 passed laws to curtail NGOs' activities. And you can follow this story on page 4 of the East African this week. Also, a side by story, Kenya, IMF to deal, Red Cup, no issue. Kenya, IMF to deal, Red Cup, no issue. The country is discussing a new standby credit facility with lender, and it says Kenya expects to finalize a deal with the International Monetary Fund within 2 months, and the lender is not insisting on removal of the interest cap as a precondition for a new deal. Finance Minister Henry Teach said on Thursday the country is discussing a new standby credit facility with the IMF. Remember, this was a precondition for them actually to extend this particular facility, but now they've changed tone, and this is what is actually also tucked away inside page 38 of the East African. E-West, an increasing threat to region. It's another story. You can pull out that magazine called Outlook inside the East African to follow that particular story as well. I want to show you also what we have on the front page of, not really the front page, but the editorial cartoons that we do have today. According to our cartoonist, let's see what has been drawn by Stano inside the People Daily today. And it's all about the Eurobond. Remember, we're still gagging for more as far as borrowing is concerned, or maybe looking for that particular facility is concerned. 2010 billion Eurobond. That is how Wanjiku is suffering right now, saddled with this responsibility. Remember, there is this Sukuk, of course, the Islamic financial instrument that we are seeking as well from the Middle East, and more are coming. This is just the tip of the iceberg, but see how also you are suffering saddled with this responsibility of paying back this particular loan as well. This is what we do have inside the People Daily according to Stano. Let's see what also has been drawn by Gaddo, and this is in today's Standard today. This is in today's Standard TZ. That is how Magufuli has muzzled Tanzania right now. Right? What sort of leadership is he espousing, or what sort of leadership is actually showing? I leave it for you to decipher that. And this is what has been drawn by Gaddo today as far as Tanzania is concerned and the leadership of Magufuli. Those are your two editorial cartoons today. Now, I want to take you back also to our archives and show you this particular picture. And of course, you'll notice that particular face, but the other maybe you cannot. And this is a test of tradition. And this was outgoing U.S. Ambassador Aurelia Brazil, sampling traditional Kamba porridge prepared by the Kayinika women's group in Kitui yesterday. Right? That is the caption reading 1996. She's accompanied by the Kitui Central MP, Mrs. Charity Ngilu, from DP. The diplomat was on a 3-day tour to inspect U.S.-funded project in the district on May the 9th, 1996. Right, so this is 1996, and that was also the former U.S. ambassador to Kenya. From our archives, that's how it looks. There you go. So make sure you grab a copy of the Daily Nation, a copy of also the Star, the Standard, or whichever paper that really floats your boat. And remember also 500 billion shillings test for taxman Kenya Revenue Authority must collect. Staggering, it says here, 500 billion shillings within 2 months if the government is to live within its budget. This is Kazi Kwanjiraini, who has been recalled actually from retirement, and you can follow this story also on the back page of the Daily Nation this morning. For now, let's swing for the fences by looking at the highlights. Right, I'm given to understand there are no highlights, but we continue with the stories nonetheless. The fake gold scam is the new front line in the political battle between Deputy President William Ruto, his supporters, and those of ODM leader Raila Odinga. Ruto and his allies hit out at Odinga, saying he had sullied the country's name over his involvement in the gold scam. Odinga's allies, however, hit back, saying leaders should leave him out of it, as he is not involved.
Wakatuambia hapo katikati ati wataenda Canaan yenyewe ikawa ya bandia. Saa hii ati wanauza gold, hiyo gold pia ni ya bandia. Sasa hawa watu tunawajua, hata hakuna haja ya kusumbuana na watu. Watu wanajua ni nani watu wa kuendesha, ni nani conman.
Tunataka TPP, tunataka DCI, bila uoga, bila upendeleo yoyote. Wawe tunataka kuona kesho ama kesho kutwa wale walienda kuiba pesa huko Uarabuni kwamba wanapeleka gold ya uongo, wao wamewekwa pingo.
Vile polisi wanawakamata hapa Muhanda wale vijana ambao wamekunywa busa ya kutemeza damu mwilini, vile vile wamekamata Raila Odinga kwa kuuza fake gold.
Raila Odinga alikuwa na Moi, akajaribu kunyang'anya serikali ya Moi na kifua, hakuweza. Raila Odinga akakuja akangangana na Kibaki, akafuruka huyo mzee miaka 10.
Wameanza sasa kuleta jina ya Raila Odinga, jina ya president na jina ya CS Matiang'i katika hili jambo la dhahabu ama fake gold. Tunataka kuambia kwamba Wakenya wanaweza soma na wanaweza ona.
MPs opposed to the DP's presidential ambitions have also hit out at him for linking ODM leader Raila Odinga to the fake gold scam. They also say his defense of the president in the fake gold investigation or investigations was insincere, I should say.
Hivi fake gold, wale DPP na DCI wafanye kazi yao. Lakini wewe ambao ni wakili wa Waitito, na wewe vile vile ni wakili wa governor wa Turkana huko, na wewe ni wakili wa governor wa Migori,
wacha kuwa wakili wa Uhuru wa mambo hii. Yeye hajatuma wewe. President wetu ana mdomo. Kama ametajwa mahali si ana mdomo, yeye mwenyewe atajisemea.
Uchunguzi ufanywe wa kina. Wale ambao wameuzika hatua ichukuliwe. Lakini wasiende kujificha mgongo ya rais. Uhuru anajua kujitetea mwenyewe.
Tuliitwa na Uhuru Kenyatta State House. Everybody who was elected on Jubilee, senators, members of parliament, we were called to State House. And he told us vitu kadhaa. Lakini ile kitu ilikuwa ya muhimu. Alituuliza kama viongozi wa Jubilee, tumpatie miaka 4. Tufanyie Wakenya kazi miaka 4.
And in another developing story, leaders have faulted the arrest of Kakamega Senator Cleophas Malala, who was detained on suspicion of fanning the flames of violence in Matungu in Kakamega. Senator James Orengo and other leaders say police got it wrong by rounding them up before investigations into the causes of insecurity there are complete. 4 more suspects linked to the killings in Matungu were arrested in Busia and will be arraigned in court today.
Cleophas Malala demanded a question from the Ministry of Interior through the chair of the Senate committee in charge of national security to issue a statement on the occurrences in Matungu. Things have turned around to the extent that the person who was demanding for justice for the people of Matungu has now been locked up for the concerns he had raised in relation to the violence and the killings in Matungu. This arrest is malicious, without a foundation.
You don't just arrest people based on rumors. The world is not built on rumors.
What is happening here is somebody is trying to make a political statement.
We hope that this process will not turn into a circus that is unending.
Kwani hakuna uchasusi Kenya hii? What's the use of DCI office here? Mpaka minister huko ndio aende Matiang'i aende, ndio sasa watu wanaamuka na kusema kwamba waje tuone kwamba Matiang'i amefanya kazi. Na hiyo watu watapelekwa Monday. Hii ni kuangaisha hawa watu. Viongozi kuangaisha tu walale ndani, Monday wapelekwe, alafu waangaishe mambo ya kupewa bond.
And as the state tightened its grip on leaders it suspects behind the Matungu killings, Nandi Senator Samson Cherargei, in the meantime, claims former Sports Cabinet Secretary Rashid Echesa, who was among those detained, was being persecuted over his support for Deputy President William Ruto. He spoke at the Nandi Hills police station where Echesa was being held.
We have also tried to cross-check why he's being charged upon, but charges that have been facing Rashid Echesa has not been clearly set out. And I believe maybe today, by tomorrow as they move to High Court, we expect the charges that are being charged against our Sports Cabinet Secretary Rashid Echesa to ensure that they fast track. And we hope the cases, these cases will be concluded in no time, so that all of us can know where the truth is.
Now, as the ministry and the Kenya Union of Teachers hold their uncompromising positions on the new competence-based curriculum, there have been independent voices calling on the government to take a step back and listen to the concerns raised about the new curriculum, as the tough talk will only complicate the reforms further. Sharon Baranga spoke to and heard from the voices of reasons, some of whom say the process is being rushed and that the country will need more time to be ready for the change.
Last week, the public was treated to a tug of war between the Ministry of Education and the Kenya National Union of Teachers over the competency-based curriculum.
What the hell do you want, and who the hell do you think you are to be saying that nothing is going on?
If you want war with us, we are prepared to go the full length, if you are ready.
Both sides still maintain their hardline positions.
We are not going to teach CBC anymore in our classrooms.
And in what is an indicator that the government will not backpedal, the Ministry of Education has put together a 9-member committee to prepare for August's conference on the implementation of the CBC. Independent observers now say the back and forth will only serve to hurt Kenyan learners.
When the Cabinet Secretary steps out of the steps of KICD and says that there are 15 points that demonstrate that the country is not ready for rolling out a curriculum, and within 1 week she says that pilot will have to continue, and then within another 1 week she declares that rollout is ready, it raises a lot of fundamental issues on what exactly happened within those 14 days.
Last week, the Ministry of Education launched the National Curriculum Policy, which the biggest teachers' union in the country says it is illegal.
What is the difference between the so-called curriculum policy and what you're calling the sessional paper? If you took your car to a garage and a mechanic tells you that I've repaired your vehicle with 90% confidence, you can get going. And along the way, if you face problems, call me. I'm 100% sure that most of us who drive will not be comfortable to take that car.
The implementation of the new curriculum is now down to the supremacy contest between the government and teachers.
There are very many good things in this curriculum which should be implemented instant. And one of them will be the methodology of teaching. This doesn't need a shift in the system. We are talking about 3 years from now. We need to have junior secondary schools. Well, answer the ministry tells you, we are going to convert all primary schools into junior secondary schools. But look at the status of those primary schools. Are you sure they will give us the kind of quality that we need? So when I talk of 10 years, is it ambitious? It is not ambitious. We are basically talking about 2028, 2029.
So which way for the Kenyan learner?
Should we give all children all the education? Should we give some children all the education? Or should we give all the children some education? These are 3 fundamental questions that we need to address. And if we're really able to address them, then I think we'll be able to design an education that can work for all the children.
The leadership of the Kenya National Union of Teachers directed its members to stick to the outcome-based curriculum while teaching in class. The government, on the other hand, insists that teachers have been trained and that they should use the competency-based curriculum. The stalemate between the two key stakeholders could be a recipe for disaster in the education sector. Sharon Baranga, NTV, Nairobi.
Now, an explosion hit a tourist bus near the Egyptian capital of Cairo on Sunday, injuring at least 10 people. The blast occurred in the afternoon. governor of Kisumu. Let's go back to Jeremiah Kioni. So what lessons can we learn from this particular election in India? 900 million voters. We struggle here with around 19 million voters. 9 million voters being, of course, managed by 3 commissioners. What a lesson.
Yeah, 900 million voters. And the staff or the officers who had been charged with manning the elections
yes,
are actually equivalent to the number of voters we have in this country. Because we had 12 million engaged members of perhaps the Indian population, if I can call them Indians, who are charged with the responsibility of manning that election. And remember, in this country, we are struggling to register 15, 16 million voters. So our voters were the one manning, our total number of voters in Kenya were the one charged with manning the elections in India. And yet, I mean, it's neat and brief, but a couple of reasons.
So it ran efficiently in India, but here in the country,
yeah, but a couple of things, and the bottom line is there is a lot of trust.
A lot of trust.
There's a lot of trust, and there is honesty and integrity with the persons charged with that responsibility. And a good example is the person we engaged heavily, a lady who was in charge of a massive sea of people, and she's a magistrate out to oversee that particular exercise for 1 or 2, 3 days, and then back to her station. And she was really a proud Indian, showing us how it is working. When one is told to do this, he does it with honesty and integrity. And that's one of the things. Of course, there are systems. They have put systems in place that work, systems in place that they also trust. And there is also quite some high-level respect of persons in authority in the name of police officers. And you notice that even with a population of about 1.3 billion people, you respect that there is quite some level of chaos, given how we manage our things. But the Indians have quite some respect for their officers, police officers, and even the persons in the civil service. But I think also it is good to, let me also add something else that was, I don't think we can try it in this country. After they voted, they all take ballots to a warehouse or a godown, and 3 padlocks. They lock it and they go away. The counting is not done the same day. The counting is done a month later. And once the counting is done, then they know who has won. Oh, they do things that one would be very, very scared of trying in this country. But things that I think point to where we should go and what we should aspire to do. The 3 commissioners. Why 3 commissioners? Because they have a system that is working. They have engaged staff, members of the civil service, some individuals who are directly employed by the Elections Commission of India. But also, when you walk into a polling station and you see how the exercise is being conducted, it becomes clear to you that for somebody to imagine that he can lead, it will be, he would have to work with everybody, including the agents of the opposition or the opposing candidate. And but said and done, it is something doable. We can get there, and I think we should concentrate on getting there to avoid the kind of tensions and the immense resources that we use. I really like the idea of frontiering, the idea of using even magistrates. But as I said before, I have said it in one of my public meetings, is that when a church minister or a pastor has been engaged to become an agent or even a returning officer in this country, it would be very nice to see him move into that station with a collar, like the chairman of EACC has done since he was appointed to the EACC, Archbishop Abukara. He's never left his calling. He's with it. And you don't remove your collar, put a tie or a pull neck or get hooded like this person is going to court, so that you can achieve what you want to achieve for the person who has appointed you for that particular moment. And then the following Sunday, you are back preaching. We need to, I think, our level of honesty, integrity, and trustworthiness is
Right.
what is failing us. It's not even the systems.
Right. But this
but we still have
elections,
work to do.
was it running under the presidential or the parliament? It's a parliamentary sort of elections, the structure that you do have, or the system.
It is not the system that we have in this country, without doubt. But it's an election all the same. The end result is that you end up with leaders in your country, and the process of ending up with those leaders is what is of concern to us, so that we reduce the level of noise that we have. They have the mixed member proportion, something we need to really think about as a country. But it doesn't take it away from them. They have they have a system, an electoral system that we really need to run a lot from.
Right. Yes. Or maybe also, Pogiso wants to weigh in on this. I know you're not in India, but at least you've been following these elections as well. And given what Jeremiah Kioni is telling us today, what should be some of our learning points?
I think, thank you very much and good morning. The one thing I want to add on there is that I've also been an observer in various elections within Africa, not very much outside of Africa. So if you have trust, which is the key currency in anything going through in this country, I can see even trust coming out, the need for trust coming out in the big four. And especially in the housing, as the PS is saying, their trust is lacking. And so where you have trust for people, that many, we should be able to look for a way to engage Kenyans to have trust. But you can't have trust until you can see that there are trustworthy organizations and personnel put in those places. And I think that our training for elections, getting the right people who can be trusted, so that our people can have trust in our system. And I agree with Jeremiah. I mean, I've been following the story of the 1 month long election that's going to happen, that took place in India. If it was in this country, any delay for one more day,
Tensions will be rising.
You would be in the serious problems. But here is a whole month of elections, and the people just following their rules. So that's very impressive, and I think that's how democracy should evolve. Our democracy is old enough now to reach a place where we should be able to hold trustworthy elections, whatever it takes.
Right. Okongo Mogini, briefly.
Yeah. Okay, I think we always say that India is the world's oldest democracy, and we are still. I mean, what we are getting is just confirmation that their democracy continues to grow from strength to strength. But I think there is something you raised about parliamentary system of government. And I think other than India, we have also had another election concluded in Australia,
yes,
which is also a parliamentary system. And I think the Labour Party is taking over from the Conservative. And one interesting thing is that I think the former Prime Minister, Kevin Rudd, was on the verge of losing his seat, which he has held for the last 20 years. So I think the conversation we also need to have as a country is that perhaps when you go parliamentary, you reduce tension, within the country, and you remove the focus more from individuals. And it's a party that performs well throughout the country that will move in to form the next government. Let's see and let's wait and see what happens in Malawi. I think Malawi is presidential system, and they're also going to the polls tomorrow. But I think what should speak to our conscience is that it's high time we as a country reconsidered our system of government, whether we should actually move from presidential to parliamentary, so that we reduce tension. And then finally, I think it's also a wake-up call to our leadership at IEBC. I mean, if 3 commissioners in India can conduct an election involving 900 people, but in this country, I think we had, were there 9 commissioners in office, but they could not conduct a credible election. I think we have not reached a stage where we have full faith and confidence in our IEBC. And this should be a wake-up call to Chebukati, that he should put his house in order. He should be thinking ahead. By the time we go to elections, the whole country should have full faith in the leadership of IEBC. Yeah.
Maybe the entire IBC should have gone to get some learning lessons also.
I
from,
think
from India as well.
what Kioni did not tell us,
that, yeah?
what Kioni didn't tell us is whether he was there with the Chebukati.
No, the chairman of our electoral process was there. Two commissioners were there.
Two commissioners were there.
And they engaged heavily with the chairman of the Electoral Commission of India.
Thank you.
And I am sure we also had discussions with them, and there was a lot that we learned from there. But the bottom line is that we have to have trust in our system, and what it takes to develop that trust is what we should
Thank you.
work on.
And of course, critical proponent of parliamentary as opposed to presidential system is also Professor Anyang' Nyong'o. And what do you have to say? Maybe you've been also doggedly following this particular development in India as far as the election is concerned. Good morning, sir.
Morning, Inea. Thank you so much. Well, as my colleagues say, if you look at countries' parliamentary system, one, their elections never start very early. Two, they have never had any scandals about election rigging.
Yes.
And thirdly, there is no hysteria about the counting process in all those countries with parliamentary system. The US is one of the oldest democracies. But just last year, there was a crisis in Florida about rigging. It was Georgia, Florida, you name it. Okay. And then the last presidential election, there was between Trump and Hillary Clinton, there was an accusation of massive rigging from both sides. So presidential system at their very nature, very controversial because it is a zero-sum contest. And secondly, if you look at the parliamentary system, the emphasis is on building political parties. There are political parties which deliver candidates. And because India is both proportional and direct election.
It's a combination of both.
Yeah, combination of both. That is also like in Germany. There's an intense campaign among political parties to get as many members in parliament as possible, as many votes as possible, so as to get members in parliament. Now ours, the tragedy with ours is that you have an election, and the very next day, people begin campaigning for the next presidential election. So a lot of time is wasted in between one election and the other, campaigning. And obviously, very divisive politics. Keleweke, Tanga-Tanga, Nini. You would not have Kelewekes and Tanga-Tangas in India. Where are they Tanga-Tangaing to?
Maybe they have their own monikers there.
No.
No, they wouldn't get time.
They wouldn't get time. I mean, people are busy building their parties. People are building their states. You know, people are building. The prime minister is building, performing so that his party can do better in the next election. Because if his party doesn't do better, he's no longer prime minister. So I think we really should be objective and stop this passionate clinging to presidential system on the basis of only one thing. It must be our turn next time. Yeah, it must be our turn next time. Now, so it is your turn, but nothing changes. You know, substantially. The economy doesn't change, the politics doesn't change. If anything, it becomes worse. So I really think that since now we are having possibilities of having a referendum, one issue must be sorted out. Are we continuing to be presidential, or are we going parliamentary?
Right.
Allow me to add, Debarl, a quick one. That when you are dealing with the parliamentary system, and I am a late comer in this. I am one person who has really objected to this, but I see a lot of sense now, given the difficulties that we have in this whole thing of inclusivity. You sell a package as a party.
Exactly.
A package of individuals. Yeah. And they come from Kisumu, from Nyeri, from Mombasa, Turkana. Yeah. And that package is voted for by the country. So if you have a wrong person from Nyeri, the package will fail. So as a party, you are careful of the persons you bring on board. This country, we are now struggling with corruption. In your package, if there are individuals who are feared to be corrupt, that package will fail. And it actually makes the country manage its resources, its affairs, even the issues of values in the country, the respect of those values. It's a good thing that we need to start engaging in. Of course, there are quite a number of issues that we need to understand. But we need to start thinking about it. I don't think I am at the level at which Professor is where he's seeing a referendum. I don't see it coming that soon. But we have good reasons to start engaging and understanding how is it that we can move to a parliamentary system of governance. Of course, certainly there are many factors that would come into play, including how we are spread in the country and all the other things that are a little bit contentious. But there are issues that once we have agreed that this is a good way to go, and we are all engaged in making sure that it works, and we have the courage to engage on the difficulties that may have made others fearful, I think it's something that is useful. But without doubt, it improves on the quality of the leaders that you bring on board as a party. If there is one bad apple, then people from other parts of the country will also be voting against that particular apple because you are in a package.
Right, thank you. We need to take a short break right now, but you didn't tell us about the electronic system. Are they using the analog way? The analog way?
No. They've gone. It's a combination of both.
Oh, it's analog and
a
digital.
little bit of it, even I saw a little bit of muchikaki technology having been being used, because you would give a piece of paper once you vote, and they would put a thread into it, and all that is locked in the warehouse. So all these things will be counted, and they all must tally. So leaking becomes very difficult.
Maybe
a combination of all those
to keep it tight, like the Gambia also. Gambia, were they using the marbles as well? Right, thank you. When we circle back, of course, also we want to look at this particular picture. Anyang' Nyong'o is here, and they tell us why also the senators came out in force. He's the governor of Kisumu. He had gone to visit, this is Kakamega Senator Cleopas Balala. The senator was arrested over the recent killings in Matungu sub-county. And of course, from the order of the DPP, he has been released on this as well. But why are the senators also really coming out in force to defend their own as well? Right? We take a short break right now. When we circle back, we discuss that and thereafter other issues as far as the headlines are concerned. Today, don't go away. Remember to hit us on Twitter. Interviews, a Twitter handle. Welcome back. You're watching This Is a Point here on AM Live. We continue with the conversation. Earlier on, I'd actually shown you this picture of Anyang' Nyong'o visiting the senator of Kakamega, who was in the slummers yesterday. This is in regard to what has been happening as far as Matungu killings is concerned. This is a picture I'm trying to show you. And Anyang' Nyong'o, we can tell us, first of all, this development as far as the arrest of some of the legislators is concerned. We have senators who are actually coming out and condemning these arrests before investigations are done.
Well,
but this is a process of investigations, even the arrests.
But I don't want to comment about the investigations and all that.
Yes,
that's none of my business. My concern was Senator Malala being held in police cell over the weekend. I think that there's a better way of doing these things. If you have the evidence before you, you go pick up the senator on a Monday, take him to court and charge him. And then the case can be argued by lawyers before in the court of law. And that thing would have been dispensed with in a day or so. But I thought this was kind of the same old tactic. We used to suffer the same thing during Moira. I remember that same police cell where Malala was held. I was last held there in November, I think 2002, just before it was before then. I think somewhere mid-2002, maybe May or so. And really, it is not a very becoming environment where he was held. So I went to see him first as a leader, and second as somebody I know, and thirdly, really to discuss with the police why they could have done it much better, in a much more civilized manner. I mean, Senator Malala is somebody who is not going to escape to go anywhere. He can attend a court of law. There are lawyers to handle these things. So I really think that this is unnecessary harassment of the senator. Now that I hear, I see in the papers that what they were looking for is because he had to send 150,000 shillings to somebody. Well, you can send 150,000 shillings to somebody for all kinds of reasons. And you don't need necessarily to know the character, the behavior, the coming ins and goings out to that particular person. So this is something that should have been interrogated on the spot rather than put the senator in this kind of difficult situation. And worse still, when I went there, his wife and his lawyer and his relatives had not been able to see him, which I think is also rather inhuman. But by going there, at least they were able to see him. And then later there are follow-up visits that we did. But I really thought that looking back to those old days, we don't need to do such things today. I mean, really, it is unnecessary and it's inconvenient. Yeah.
All right, let's say from Okongo Mogini, of course, we've had this also notion that has come to the public for that, you tend to defend your own. Even some of the legislators, you've seen them in court as well. We have people being arraigned in courts like Kidero, people who maybe have been embroiled in corruption, but we have also some of the legislators who, they're senior counsel, they're of course advocate of the High Court in this country, they go to defend this. And people have been wondering, how do we have a dichotomy between you, the face of a senator for the people, and you, the face of maybe your practice as well? When it comes to issues of leadership and integrity, where someone is really embroiled, we cannot really differentiate. And this has been a debate in the public for as well, where you're defending people who, so to speak, are in the wrong. And I've put it in quotes, yeah? And you're supposed to be the face of leadership and integrity. So there tend to be a confusion of sorts of this. I don't know what you think for Congo and Pogisi on this, and also Jeremiah Kioni.
I think first I need to read the Constitution to you. And this Constitution was made for you and for me. And
this is Article what?
In the Bill of Rights.
Bill of Rights.
Every arrested person is presumed to be innocent till proven guilty. You can read Article 50, Sub-Article 2A. Yeah? That is the right to a fair hearing. Every accused person has to be presumed innocent until the contrary is proved. So I don't think you can take it against any advocate, maybe an elected member of parliament, senator, or any lawyer, and say that such and such a person is so tainted that he should not have benefits of an advocate. I think that's a constitutional right, even if it comes against you. If tomorrow I'm told that you have assaulted your wife, we should not say that because you present this program, you should not have right to counsel. I think you have a right to an advocate, you have a right to be presumed innocent.
But where does the conflict of interest arise? Because you've seen other legislators condemning an act and then they're defending the same act in the same courts as well.
If you go to the US, if you follow the case of Thomas Jefferson, who was a senator in Illinois, one of the most celebrated lawyers, he was a member of Congress and practicing at the same time. So I think this is something that has even happened in other jurisdictions. It's not something that you can take against lawyers. But I think you want to divert the discussion from what we have seen being vested against Senator Malala. And I think that should be the key point we should discuss this morning, not issues of people having representation by lawyers. That will continue. You'll never take it away. It's in the Constitution. It is with us today, tomorrow, and forever. It will always be there. But what should worry us as a country is the tendency the police are formed where, you know, they round up suspects on Friday so that they can go around the Constitution, which demands that if you arrest a suspect, that suspect should be presented before court at least within 24 hours. That means if you arrest somebody on a Monday, he should be in court on a Tuesday. But because they want to kind of defeat the intentions of the Kenyan people, that we should not be holding people in police cells, but we should arrest people and present them in court and have them charged, they want to be arresting people on Fridays, they keep you over the weekend, and then on Monday, they release you knowing that they have already punished you enough by keeping you on a weekend. I think that's a practice that we really need to condemn, Debarl. Because we are going back to the old order. When we called the police service, when we changed the name of the Kenya Police to Kenya Police Service, we want them to be a service to the people, not people who want to become lords into themselves, lords of impunity. They can decide to pick you up. I mean, you can see how embarrassing it is. You keep somebody in cells on Friday, Saturday, and then on Sunday, the DPP tells you, look, the nature of evidence that you have presented before me is not enough to sustain a charge. So release these people and continue carrying on investigation. I think in a functioning democracy where the police respect the rights of suspects, it is more prudent, makes more sense if you conclude your investigation, seek the consent of the DPP, and then you move to arrest. Why should you arrest somebody, then start investigation, start seeking the consent of the DPP? And if I may pause, is Malala a flight risk? Is he likely to abscond in any way? I mean, you could even have issued summons and say, report on Monday at Kisumu law courts, Kakamega law courts. The Constitution is very clear. It says you can even, if you read Article 49, rights of arrested persons, Article 49H, he has a right to be released on bond or bail or on reasonable conditions. Just conditions. You can tell him, we have set you free, but we want you to report on Monday, Kisumu Police Station at 8 a.m. We take you to court and charge you. If he doesn't show up, then you can say, now we want to arrest this person because he did not hit the conditions that we gave him. Debarl, this is not something that we really need to condone. Remember, we saw it in the Pangani 6. They were arrested on a Friday, locked in for the weekend, taken to court on a Monday, again kept in police cells for another week. Nothing has come of that case 3 years down the line. This abuse by the police is something that we as Kenyan people really need to condemn. This is an abuse of human rights, an abuse of the rights of elected leaders, and I don't think as a country we need to condone this kind of behavior from our police force.
Let's say from Pogisio.
Yeah, there are three things that we can look at. Where did these things have an old tradition where politicians are punished? Some people are looking forward to arresting politicians. But the duty of the politician actually is such that he should be given that kind of the right treatment, not necessarily, not only the politicians, I think Kenyans generally. But have we reached a point where in our culture you can be told, just report the police station and you do report? Maybe not. Maybe we should develop a culture of what to call the rule of law in this country, which everybody participates in and everyone buys in, so that we don't have to be arrested to get to the police. We just go, take yourself there, if you're asked to do so. But secondly, there seems to be total confusion because there's no coordination apparently. Why would the DPP have an opinions different from the police, and yet they work for in the same direction? That weekend, there was hype about arresting very many politicians. I mean, very many were arrested that weekend, including former cabinet minister. And then within a few hours, they were released because of the DPP saying that these charges do not warrant people being concerned. Well, why would they not, in the first place, have coordinated themselves? But honestly, there are also politicians who just enjoy getting in trouble. And I'm not speaking for Malala. I'm not speaking for Malala, but there are politicians within this context who just get in trouble every day or every weekend, and they just look for that kind of trouble. And
is this to gain notoriety?
I don't know. I mean, the people were just elected, and they were elected, and they were never people of honor, even when they were being elected. And it's amazing that Kenyans sometimes know exactly that they're electing people who have no honor, and then you call them honorable. You know, being honorable is not a baptism. You don't get the name honorable. It's something innate. It's earned. And I think also saying this to politicians, let's also carry ourselves in a way that does not bring us into this kind of disrepute. Yeah.
All right, let's hear lastly from Jeremiah Kioni.
Thank you, Debarl. You know the Bible. The Bible, there is a verse in the Bible that says that when the hour of reckoning comes, you'll be asked, or it will be said that I was sick. You never came to see me in hospital. I was in prison. You never visited me. I was hungry. You never gave me anything to feed. So I think we should never feel or condemn any person who goes to visit persons in such situations. Because whether a politician or not, if you're hungry, you will need somebody to help you, and if you are sick, you need somebody to comfort you. Equally, even when you have been put behind bars, you need somebody who can talk to you from this other side of the world. Like you can see Professor Nyang' Yong on this side of the bar and of the bars, and the person in police custody on the other side. So I think that is something we should not condemn. And I think we should, again, take it from what Professor was saying. He was not there to deal with the reasons why they had been arrested. Is how, why now, and of course, perhaps the person behind the bars may want to send you with a word to the family and the rest. So that's a humanitarian thing that we need to do, and we need to be to encourage it to happen. You don't. If you have a person in hospital, you not say, I'm not going to see this person in hospital, he was my enemy. He is in ICU, unless you are wishing him death. These are things you cannot do as a human being, and I think enough of that. The other aspect is this. The Kenyans in Daragwa are being arrested on Fridays because they have committed one or two offenses, or even being in the wrong place at the right time, or the right time at the wrong place, whatever. And when we then say we as leaders should not be arrested on Friday, but the good people of Daragwa are arrested on Friday, and there's nobody who complains about them, again, we really need to balance it out. I think we need to be careful so that we don't seem to be treating some people with preferential treatment. But having said that, and like Senator Mugen has said, these individuals individuals who are known where they are. They can always be called upon to appear in court or appear in the police station in another day. So we must make sure that the police are not also using this as a form of harassment. But to condemn the police, I would be careful, because I only want to condemn the police if they have acted outside the law. If they have cleverly seen a way of going around some provisions in the Constitution, unless we improve them to make sure that they are not going around that provision in the Constitution, it will be difficult for us to condemn them. And I think it is also not useful to have that blanket condemnation of the police force, blanket condemnation of politicians. It is not helping this country. There are some very good police officers who will wake up when you are under distress. And they will leave their children, maybe even a day old, or even their wife delivering, to come to their aid. And for the sake of that one police officer, we need to be careful with how we we talk about them when a bunch of them behaves badly. But having said, I think Mr. Debarl, I was about to just say, Mr. Speaker, sir, I think it is.
You look like one.
It is important.
I have my standing orders
to know
here.
this, and I think the Pogido has mentioned. You remember when we had the handshake last year, March?
Yes.
It was like a death knell to some politicians' career. There are some politicians who came to the limelight and are even occupying offices today on only one account. They knew how to insult others who are in position of authority. And they were given votes because they could insult better than others. Now that we have the handshake and there is calmness that side, and they have lost themselves, and you'll find them, some of them in Kiereweke, others in Tangatanga, still looking for an opportunity to insult a person on the other side, because that is what is in their DNA. Equally, like the Senator Pogiso has said, there are some of us who are elected on account on how much trouble we can cause to the police, or just being labor rousers. And when that happens, then of course we cannot be very busy all over the weekend looking for where is it that they caused trouble and they were arrested for us to be there. So it's really a mix of things. But the bottom line is that the DPP needs Otto to do his work, his prosecution, and leave investigation to another arm. He seems to be directing investigations more than it should be done perhaps by Kinoti, which I think eventually may cause some trouble.
I wonder if the senators also will actually do the same for Moses Wetangula, who is also embroiled in this fake scam, fake gold scam as well, right? Yeah, we don't know how this will also pan out, but now, I don't know, Okongo Mogini, you can tell us.
Even if we don't do it, what I can assure you is that if any charges are preferred against Wetangula, there will be a lawyer appearing for him somewhere. And you can't condemn that lawyer, if it be an elected leader or just a lawyer out
yes,
there.
and I'm sure, of course,
that's a constitutional right.
You've come across, of course, this particular clip. It's been played in some across the media houses, even a nation media house as well. And this cannot be presented as a material evidence in court.
What?
That particular clip or that particular voice until it is authenticated. And I wonder, from all, all and sundry, whom they've had Wetangula before, I don't know. Maybe you can tell us that particular legislation, because this is a tripping wire. Even it has been difficult for the National Cohesion and Integration Commission, who they've always said now that cannot be presented as a material evidence in court. We've had the clips from television, from radio, or maybe you have those audio clips as well, but you cannot present this as material evidence in court when it comes to issues of...
No. I think you're getting it wrong. What the Evidence Act actually says is that there are procedures you must follow. It's not that you can't produce that clip. It's just, because of safeguards, you don't want just any clip to be thrown into social media, then it's admissible in court. What the Evidence Act says is that, before you produce that clip in court, you will need a certificate produced by the person who has really extracted that video from either the TV, radio, from the telephone conversation. That's why oftentimes you see if somebody wants to produce something from a phone, maybe the police will take that phone, take it through, I don't know what the scientific call it, they run that clip, then the person who has done that will produce a certificate, say, I'm the one who logged this phone into the computer. I extracted that information. Yes, the forensic. I extracted that information, which I now want to produce in court as evidence. So it's not correct that it's a general rule that such evidence is not admissible. It's just that we have safeguards that must be met before a court of law admits. I can tell you there are a number of...
But the evidence, we've seen some of them have been admissible in the courts, but they're thrown away because of the issues that you're saying.
No.
But how do we protect the sources as well? If you don't want to reveal the sources who actually went full steam ahead and produced this particular material evidence? How could you want to use a journalist, you want to protect your evidence?
I can refer you to a number of cases. If you read, I think there's a case that was decided by the Court of Appeal that involved... I think that was the Speaker of the County Assembly of Kisumu versus the County Assembly itself. I think the court admitted a video clip in court. And why it admitted is because somebody was able to produce a certificate. For example, the newsman who captured that clip can himself run that through a computer, and then he produces a certificate saying, I'm the one who captured this clip. The voice you are hearing in that clip is that of Senator Omogeni, and I'm willing to produce it before court. So it's issues of safeguards, and I think that is for good sense, because you don't want, in this era where technology has really advanced, you don't want some people to come up with any clip and then they say that was a conversation between Kioni and DCI.
Thank you.
There should be safeguards.
Let's say from just to add to what Senator Morgan is saying, you know, there's these corn artists who can imitate your voice perfectly.
Yeah.
You know, there can be a fake Inea Debarl, a fake Mogeni, you know, and they will pre-produce. If you don't see the fellow talking and it's just a video recording, you would believe that voice is yours, but it is not. So a conversation can be carried out where the voice is speaking impersonate other people so perfectly that you would believe they're the people. And you haven't seen this in TV shows where comedians imitate others. I've seen a comedian imitating President Moi, and you would believe it is President Moi. A comedian imitating Raila, you would believe it is that. So I think having a recording is itself not good enough. What Senator Morgan is saying is very important, that it must be authenticated, that the people actually captured in that recording are the actual people. That must be done by experts, not by anybody. So I think when we listen to something like that, I think one must be cautious how you comment about it, because you may be making a conclusion from completely false premises. You see. So I think we just be careful. It doesn't matter who, whether it is Wangatangula or myself, or what, a recording like that without seeing the people speaking. You know, like if they are speaking and you have captured on the camera, that's different. But if just a recording, I think that's very, very risky. You must go through the proof tests that Senator Morgan is talking about.
Let's say from...
let me just
we'll come to you.
Let me just add, because that's exactly what Mr. Morgan speaks on the point of law. I cannot say anything. Because, is an authority in matters law. But let me just say that in this world, I can also be an authority in matters technology.
Yes.
But in today, where they are,
you as a former minister of communications,
yes,
okay.
and having,
I was waiting
yes.
for why too much praising of women.
Yeah. Because that's true. And that in the age of technology, as we move forward, by the way, it's going to be more difficult to prove the real voiceovers that have been made by and also in the days of Photoshop. I don't know whether you've seen people whose photo has been placed in compromising positions.
Yes.
And until you watch what shoes they were wearing, and you might find they were ladies' shoes. So those kind of things are a bit difficult, and you have to be very careful. So they will slow down the process. They may not be, they'll be admissible, but they'll slow down because it has to be completely confirmed. And I think that's what the lawyer is saying. We will then do that. But let's not miss the point. There are two things that we might miss the point on. One was on the Matungu killings, which we must condemn. Those killings are very senseless. This one also is on this scam goal, because what has happened here is that because news is instantly international these days, and so is social media and all reporting, all of a sudden people who are listening might think that our former prime minister, our president, and all these names which have been thrown into these things are participating in these scams. And you know, and we need to find a way of protecting those names and our country. Because somebody can just take those names and think that's the business they're doing instead of running the country. So we are really in a very, very bad spot, put in a very bad spotlight as a country, on account of unproven recordings. So I just want to say that if that recording is what really transpired, there's nobody who's above the law. Nobody's above the law. But on account of just airing it and spreading it and it gone wild, it's gone everywhere, it's not very good. Now, I can see politicians over the weekend are apportioning, already saying, speaking about, I think it's the Tanga team now accusing the Kieleweke side, oh, finally we got something on you. So, it is actually, it's a very wrong competition. What are we competing over?
The mudslinging. Of course, it's a mudslinging. This is a corrupt leader. We've always pushed him to the corner. Now we've got an afforder.
Exactly.
Yes, and we can throw this mud on you as well.
This issue of the clips, electronic clips, Debarl and my colleagues, it's an issue that and I hear and agree with what my colleagues have said. But we must make sure that we also don't kill evidence that could have helped us deal with some of these heinous crimes that are happening in this country. And I have looked at this Evidence Act, and I think it's Section 106 or thereabout. And to me, it seems to be running. It's like it is also qualifying Article 159, which was meant to deal with the technicalities when you go before a court of law. And I think the very stringent requirements that are there before such a crime is admitted in court are actually being used to delay some of the fights that we have that will be helping us as a nation. So I think it is an area that calls for reforms, amendments to try and improve, not to, of course, being conscious of what has just been said, that we have people who can also use it wrongly. And one of the things that I think we should do is, and I think the judiciary should stop killing the Cyber Act, which was passed by Parliament 2 years ago, because it was addressing some of these difficulties. Is when a person is also found guilty of having a window shop, what are they calling it? What are you calling it? The shopping, this
Photoshop.
Photoshop. When you have done the photoshopping, you have faked the voiceovers and the rest. You should be guilty of the same offense that you wanted the other person to have been found guilty of. We must be very harsh to the persons who try to put people in trouble by faking things. That way, we make it possible that the crips that are likely to fight their way in court have quite some level or measure of truthfulness or being factual, so that we don't lose this useful, because we should be able to use the technology to help us fight crimes and also move faster. But I think also, if I could add up with where Pogiso did on the issue of these two teams, and I think I don't know, those names are really, I find them difficult to allow them into my mouth. But you will find that they are people who are so they are making every effort to create a wedge between the president and the DP. Every day you are trying to create that wedge.
Okay.
And I think eventually it will hit either of them.
But what I was really struggling, and it has been exercising my mind as well, is the fact that we have this particular private conversation that is in the public domain. And we wonder, how did this happen? I mean, is somebody wiretapping our conversation in this country, right? Remember, if we may hark back also to 5 years back, we had also a legislation where there was a phone bagging bill that was actually to be enacted. And I think even that was also revived last year, that yes, there should be, a wiretapping into our conversation. So this, is it somebody, an officer from the NIS who's maybe abusing his office as well and using this particular conversation to actually put somebody in a bad light? And if these were private conversations, because you're saying there's no way we can authenticate this. And I think on technicality, this is where now we push down evidence, because we use the law and the instruments of law to actually kill a very critical evidence as well. That can be a material evidence.
Before you go
no, let's say
just a quick one about why are we having snap elections today in Austria? Why were they called over the weekend? For the reason that there was a tape that was brought to the public domain on a private thing that happened between his deputy and some businessmen from Russia. And what was the conversation about? And he said, I was drunk and this is something that I regret. What was the issue? He was looking for money that would help him fund elections in the coming days from business deals within government. This technology that is now with us, we cannot just dismiss it. We cannot just say that these were private conversations that happened somewhere and they should not be allowed into the public domain. Remember what the integrity.
No, but this is a violation of my rights as
just
a
minute.
citizen.
Allow me to finish before you come to your rights. Let me also have the right to finish my statement. Remember the issue of the Constitution talks about if you are a public officer, both your public and private life must be such that it does not demean the office that you hold.
Prof.
Well, I really respect the Constitution, but remember, there was a saying when I was in high school from English literature. I don't know which author it was who said the Englishman's home was once said to be his castle. It is fast becoming his prison. The Englishman's home was once said to be his castle.
His castle.
It is fast becoming his prison. I think that whereas it is indeed when you're a public officer, you're expected to behave in such a manner that you don't demean your position or that of the state, wherever you are. But I think we should be very careful the extent to which we invade on people's privacy. I think if the Englishman's home becomes his prison, then he has nowhere to turn to. So I think this idea of extensive probe into people's private lives, I find it a little bit unbecoming. Nonetheless, when it comes to phone tapping, yes, the police and the NSIS and the special branch have been tapping our phones for many years. I mean, I remember when we were in the opposition during the Moi years, you were arrested, you were taken to Nyayo House in the basement, you were questioned, and you were being asked about certain things that you didn't expect anybody knew, because it was a private conversation on the phone. Okay? And you ask, now, how is this? So now, you may end up being so cautious what you say on the phone, that conversation on the phone. Now, so I think that when police tap private conversation, I think there should be a law. There should be a procedure. I hope Congo can tell us. There should be a procedure.
Yeah, because there's a lot of ambiguity around it.
Yeah,
right
because
now,
there should be a procedure whereby certain things are inadmissible in court. Okay. Crime is going to be there. Criminals will be there. Criminals will use the phone, they will use everything. Yes. Once you know somebody is a criminal, yes, you should find ways by which you follow what happens. Once somebody is in a public office, which is a sensitive office, that you must know that that office is taken very seriously by the state, okay? And it is subject to scrutiny. But by the way, that office doesn't go to my bedroom. No. I think that's too much. That office doesn't go, that follow me when I'm going to pay dowry.
You should tell that to Jeremiah Kioni, because it's
when I'm going to pay dowry in Kakamega,
yes,
for a lady we want to marry.
But if you're paying dowry,
no,
Professor, in Kakamega, with funds that you took from the Ministry of Health.
No.
From the CDF.
From the CDF.
No, that's another thing. That is easy to find.
Yes.
But once you get there and I'm sitting down and we're negotiating dowry, I mean, that's not something that the police should be listening to, how you're negotiating dowry. No, that's a private enterprise, a private initiative. So I'm just saying, I'm just illustrating that really
there is a limit.
There's a limit. The saying the Englishman's home was once supposed to be his castle, it is fast becoming his prison. We must pay attention to.
Right. Maybe the pieces of legislation that should come to the fore.
Yeah,
a lot of ambiguity. We've struggled with it. As I mentioned, it was the phone tapping a bill, and now.
I think first for Jeremiah Kioni, maybe we'll understand the importance of that Section 106 in one of these days when he faces an issue. And one area I want to make reference to. When I saw in last elections, I was involved in a number of election petitions. And what you will find is that somebody will pick a constituency, not necessarily that of Kioni, but that's something you may face in the future, is that people would attend a national government CDF meeting where maybe the member of parliament will give out checks and make some statements about his development record. And one of the people in the audience will take that voice recording.
Yeah.
And then when you win an election, they come to court and say, I recorded Mheshimiwa just before elections. He was campaigning using NGCDF, and I want this clip produced in court. So, Kioni may think that these recordings will only affect him if he is facing a criminal charge, but they also affect us in other civil realms of life. So we need to have safeguards, maybe in criminal or in civil proceedings. But I think, Debarl, some countries like, I think the US, after the 9/11, that's when they really opened it up in invading people's privacy. But they went through a legislation. They enacted the United States Patriotic Act, which clearly gives instances where the police in the US can invade somebody's privacy. And even then, the safeguards are really there. For example, if they are coming to, to look at the conduct of a student in a certain university, there are safeguards that the principal will not disclose that to the student. This information will not be released to the public. Even the recordings between an investigator and somebody who is being investigated in the US will not be released to social media. So there are safeguards. If you go to issues of raiding people's homes, like what we see in Kenya. In Kenya, if people are going to raid Kioni to look at how he uses his NGCDF.
Why are you not using Pogiso?
Pogiso does not have that. What they will do is, like what you saw in Honorable Iguru, is that the investigators will tip the media, maybe Nation, KTN, and tell them we are now going to raid so and so. Even before that evidence has been put into test, and the DPP has given consent to prefer charges. What they do in the US is that they will allow you to go and raid maybe Professor Nyang' Nyong'o's house, but they will not allow the media to accompany you to photos and release that information to the media. And that's for good court of law. So I think the challenge for us as leaders is that even if we want this, this technology to assist us in fighting crime, we need to put safeguards in place. Let me give you an example like your phone. If we take your phone today, Debarl, we don't know whether you have a girlfriend where you are sharing some SMSs, some romantic communications. The phone nowadays carries, it's like all your financial transactions. I'll be able to know how much you have in your bank, if you have been sending money to your girlfriend, all that information is there. And I think it's not fair to the Kenyan people for all this information to be taken away. Then tomorrow, you find it in Citizen Weekly. It's not right. So we need to have safeguards in place that if we receive this information, then there is a way we'll protect the privacy and the image of that leader, and that we'll only use it if it becomes necessary that this person will be charged in a court of law, and that this evidence is going to be produced in proving a criminal case against that person. Like what Kioni is saying, that somebody has withdrawn money from maybe NGCDF to go and pay dowry in Nyanza. So I think those safeguards is what we need to fight for. To fight for. And I want to also make an apology. Yesterday, and that should speak to us about these issues of opinion polls. Yesterday the opinion polls were indicating that the Conservatives were losing in Australia, 52-48. And I've just read the paper this morning to see that miracle win for the PM.
You got it wrong.
It seems like the Conservatives turned it around and they won. So the message I'm making is that I think at times this issue of opinion polls should not really give an indication on which way our politics are going. We should learn from this case of Australia.
Maybe there was one constituency that was a critical factor.
I've actually got a surprise that the Conservatives turned it around.
They did. So anyway, everything has been said about this, but the idea of wiretapping, is an old method. It goes on anyway, even if you're assured this doesn't go on. Partly because it's difficult to catch leaders on many things, they think the best thing is to start somewhere, and so on. But the one thing we might lose in this matter is, and Kenyans must be aware that sometimes they drive politicians to all sorts of ways to make money, okay? And I'm not saying this was one way of making money, but there is the demand somehow that you must make money if you're going to run for elections. Now, these Kenyans can drive politicians to do that, including using CDF, including colleagues of governor here, trying to make sure that they retain their seats and so on, making more money. The only people who will never get anything to steal from are the senators, because there is no fund. You're doing this fund.
They have nowhere to
You've been denied funds.
I'm just saying
that's how you should put it.
You've
been denied funds.
It's just that we're safe.
Because we think they will misuse.
But let me just say this, in Kenyans, we've just talked about the criminal element of leadership, and now the pressure to get resources, what you call a war chest, and everybody's using all sorts of methodology. And so let's stop pushing leaders. Let's stop pushing leaders to the brink in terms of having, if I'm a party leader, I have to look for this money until, I mean, we have a very bad culture of being elected. And I think we should really, that's why I think even putting a cap on election spending, all those things that we do, at the end, nobody observes those. And so we need to really think, are we forcing leaders to go to the brink? Are we forcing leaders to look for money in all sorts of places? Is that why corruption is growing?
Thank you. Right.
Okay. Let me just add to that. I think there are two ways by which we are forcing leaders to, and Jeremiah Kioni and I agree on this. One is this Harambee thing. Unless we do away with this Harambee thing, you will always be driving leaders to the brink. From the MCAs to the president, by the way. Nobody is excluded. Secondly, the presidential system itself. It is what makes everybody crazy about making money so that their man can win and they will eat. If you have a parliamentary seat like Mungani was saying, it is spread. Everybody feels that we must fit the party, we must get the right person here. You know, you'll find a constituency, businessmen coming together and say, let's support this party and let so and so now go to represent us. It becomes a much more communal effort.
But I remember Prof also.
So I think we seem to be just blinded with our history, that we cannot escape from this history. Yeah. And yet countries have been able to escape from their histories and turn a new leaf and develop much better. And there's plenty of evidence globally glaring us, telling us that the direction they are going will not take you anywhere. The US has had it for so many years and still they still have problems with elections. If that is the case, why don't we practice what has succeeded in less developed countries like Malaysia, India, and in much more developed countries like New Zealand and Canada? Plenty of evidence. Yeah.
But Prof, if I may remind you, I think the late Assistant Minister of Interior then, that is Orwa Ojode, they'd actually come up with, I don't know, it was not really a legislation, maybe a policy, or it was just a pronouncement from the ministry that they shouldn't be, we should not really condone any harambees. And also politicizing funerals, you know, sometimes you go to a funeral, then it turns out to be just a political a platform all through. Maybe he was on it and he had something
Let alone
on it.
the little Jordan.
Yes.
When I was a member of parliament, a member of the National Assembly, I had a bill, a motion, in fact a bill really, to abolish Harambee. It never went anywhere. When I came to the Senate, we had a select committee on Harambee. We produced a report and a bill, which passed the Senate but didn't pass the National Assembly. Mheshimiwa Jeremiah Kioni has inherited that responsibility and is pushing it in the National Assembly. Let us support Jeremiah in this effort in the National Assembly and the Senate, come up with a law. By the way, even Kuiga Wemwere, when he was a member of parliament, the committee on this produced a fantastic report, which we used when in the Senate, when we were in the select committee, when we were drafting our own bill. And so there's plenty of material really from parliament on which we can base a law to deal with Harambee.
But I think the tone now has really changed, because then I think people were seeing maybe we don't have any rhyme or reason of having this particular bill, but now we can see Harambees they've become now sort of a political tool to actually even maybe for your own political experience here as well. Do you think, I don't know what bill you're talking about, maybe Jeremiah can tell us about this particular.
Jeremiah can tell you about it.
And I think the understanding was, again, if you're actually giving in charge, it should be through a check so that we can monitor. I think there was such a discussion somewhere else among politicians. I don't know, you can fill us on this.
As I get towards the Harambee, Debarl also, just to pick on what Pugis was saying, look at the number of persons who are aspiring to different political positions, be it the governor, senator, member of parliament, or MCA, who are now in court for different reasons, stealing money this way, trying to get, I think even the issues of the gold and the rest. You find very many people who are facing some charges in court, who are looking for political positions in the last elections and perhaps even during 2013. And it's that you can literally see the issue of huge sums of money being linked with politics in this country. And how we drink that, there is no one solution to it. But quite a number of issues that have been put on the table, including our system of governance. If in the Constitution, we have the provision of political party funding. And I want to tell you that it will never make sense in this country for as long as it's the individuals who are going for those seats. Because Kenyans don't want the money to go to individuals. They want the money to go to institutions. And if it is a political party that is looking for leadership in the country, you can allow it a given amount of money so that it can sell its own policies and perhaps allow equal amount of money to all the parties. So even the realization of that particular article in our Constitution has a lot to do with our system of governance that we have today. And we have the issue of Harambes. Again, if you listen to the leadership in the church, they seem to have gotten it all wrong. We are now mixing it because it has, we are targeting the DP because he's the one who's been quite generous in giving. And I think we should not confuse these issues. Generosity of a person should never be stopped by the kind of a bill that is coming. It is how you give, and of course the accounting for that money to the persons who are given you the money. We have companies in these towns, in this town, Nairobi, who have now been formed and incorporated for purposes of being contracted to fundraise. If you have a broken leg and you need money, there are companies, there are contracts we can give you in town who now do the Harambee on your behalf for the reason that they can access the Senator Bokiso, they can access Governor Nyang'o, they'll get 100,000 from there, and there's an agreement. 60% of money will go to that company, 40% will go to your broken leg.
Harambee company.
So you have the Harambee companies, and if we have to allow that line of business, we also need to regulate it. So that, so there is a bill that is going for publication.
What is the name of the bill?
It is fundraising. It's public fundraising bill. And the issue about it is not to kill Harambes, but to provide a framework, a legal framework through which you can raise funds. You will need to notify a given agency that you are fundraising. You need to agree on how is money going to be given. Once you've been given, how do you account for that money? And even this other person who has given money, what kind of tax rebates does he get? Because he's really helping the country to grow. So it's not that we are killing it, it is that we are creating a legal framework that would help us manage that fundraising exercise well, to avoid it being abused, and also to ensure that we reap the benefits fully from that system.
And as long as the KRA comes in, so that if you give 100,000 shillings in Harambee this weekend, you must apply for
tax rebate.
Tax rebate. The next week, you now give another 100,000 Harambee. You apply for tax rebate. In 1 month, you give 400,000. KRA will come to you and say, your salary is 400,000 a month. You have given it all to Harambee. How are you paying your bills? You know,
it will supplement this kind of efforts. I think we should celebrate this, Debarl. This should be celebrated. If you read this article, it's the amount of money that we have recovered within this year that we have been able to recover by EACC.
Thank you.
And all these are efforts to help us manage our affairs better.
Thank you.
But I just wanted to add that our monitoring units, whoever, should be able actually to advance in their technology to know. For example, in the US, the minute you declare yourself president or candidate, money comes your way, and it's known exactly how much money is coming your way. And I think we should just be able to trace that money as well. And so when I'm giving, it's known. You know, somehow it can be traced. So with the political elections coming soon, we should work on those details.
Thank you. Right, we're just remaining with a few minutes, and I'll be remiss if I don't read some of your tweets as well. We have Samuel Oruto saying, if technology is meant to enable us, have better communication is key, but when it infringes our privacy more than values related to communication, it overrides its benefits to us and undermines our dignity. Also, we have Bal That is Balwa Shak saying, I've had the panelists articulate issues. Honorable Kioni, despite failing to vote for his party leader, sounds sober. I think this history of UDF will not really leave.
That's the man we'll have in court.
He won't go. He won't go.
We'll sue him. I need his details.
Let politicians change the law police are using. As long as it's in place, the law won't be used selectively to favor them, thanks to Bill of Rights in the Constitution. Also, we have Dr. Marco Joke saying, your panel are so quick to defend their own, birds of a feather, sober and balanced from Pogisio, though the birds of the same feathers fly together. I think that is what he meant to say. Then we had Thomas Lwangu saying, why is the political class too fast to defend one of their fellow when ordinary arrests are done on the course of investigations? Let them summon even those adversely mentioned in the fake gold scam audio recording. It shouldn't be selective. Abdullah Madambo is saying the difference between Kenya and India election is India election was free and fair, but in Kenya, then he gives the ellipsis there, alama dukuduku. Also, we have Kennedy Omogi, trustworthy elections run by untrustworthy officials, impossible. And also, Nyamogo Gogni is saying, I think we are 2 years away to the next general election, and like the Luo saying puts it, Tiendlong Ibano Kichopo, Etienda Ora. It says you fold your trousers on reaching the riverbank in order to cross. Yeah. It's too early, and I think they are being anxious and over-expectant. Those are your reactions on Twitter there. Lastly, I just wanted to also pick up this particular, where did it go? This particular daily in the Standard, just to comment on it. I will be remiss because we want to pick also the brains of Professor Anyang' Nyong'o. My technology is failing me a bit, but I'll try and force it. There we go. It says that MPs want states. There we go. Let me try and zoom out a bit so that you can see it clearly.
MPs want states to.
Yeah, because MPs want states to buy back KQ and create new holding aviation company. If nationalization process is adopted, the government will be forced to buy out 51.1% worth of shares owned by outsiders. I know we're stopped for time to actually talk deeply on this, but Professor Anyang' Nyong'o, I know you also previously when you were in the Senate, you were the chair of PAC, right? And this was on your table as well. But what do you think about this development, briefly, as we're
When we discussed this as I was chair of the Select Committee of Kenya Airways, and we made a lot of proposals which the new board has been trying to implement. It is an interesting proposal, but I need to read in details what the MPs are saying. What we did propose then was that KQ and Kenya Airports Authority, with regard to Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, not other airports, should come together in a kind of joint venture. We didn't have the notion that KQ should buy off Jomo Kenyatta, Kenya Airports Authority. That was nonsense. They must come together in a joint venture to run the airport so that KQ can have the added advantage that Emirates has in Dubai and Ethiopian Highlands has in Ethiopia, in Addis Ababa, okay? So that when KQ uses Jomo Kenyatta as a hub, they bring passengers to Nairobi, or if they are in code sharing with other airlines, those other airlines bring passengers to Nairobi, then it's now the responsibility of KQ to fly those passengers to other destinations in Africa. At the moment, it's a very unfair competition that we are part of the Sky team, but what this other airline, KLM, can fly to Entebbe directly, Dar es Salaam directly, and so on. And then it limits the extent to which KQ can use this African route from its hub in Nairobi.
Thank you very much. Let's get your closing remarks, Senator Kongo Mogini, briefly.
Yeah, I think for me, this KQ thing, we need to be very cautious. Because, you know, when most of these state corporations were fully in government hands, they performed dismally. And privatizing them was a way of injecting new life to them and giving them management that could turn them around. So we shouldn't be in a hurry to say that KQ should revert back to the state. We should be a bit cautious.
Thank you. Senator Pogisio.
Yeah, you know, open skies agreements limit what kind of choices you have in terms of trying to help your own airline, because Africa now is a signatory to the Yamoussoukro Agreement and open skies and the one single sky for this region, for example. So everybody in this region can apply the routes that KQ would probably have had a monopoly on. And we are heading there. We are heading into this open Pan-Africanist agreements that are here, including now, of course, extending it to the rest of the region, of the world. So I do think that one of the, I was chairman of KCA that time when he was doing that, and I know we made our contributions that time. I agree that some kind of advantage must be given in terms of a hub.
Thank you.
But the routes, of course, are determined now differently.
Finally, let's hear from Jeremiah Kione.
That Mandela said that it looks impossible until it is done. We may think that it is not possible for us to hold an election like they are doing in India. We just have to have trust in ourselves, in our institutions. And eventually it will be done in this country. We have to keep at it, and we will eventually have an election that is not so controversial, that is full of tension, that takes the economy down with it. We just have to keep at it. And finally, the bad is that the freedom of the press that we have in our constitution is not meant for you. It is meant, we give it to ourselves. And it is upon you to inform us and inform us well. I say this because I know that we have to continue benefiting from the kind of coverages that you are doing. And I really wanted us to have an opportunity to celebrate this. It is something that is really useful, positive reporting.
Thank you, thank you.
And finally is to say that I think, I don't know for how many times.
It's a wrong photo.
It's a wrong photo. Oh, the photo is wrong. Yeah. The headline and the photo.
Thank you. Let's leave it at that. No. We are winding up.
Yeah,
no. It was a closing remarks. Yours is the longest.
One closing remark.
No.
One
closed.
That,
I need to cut you.
Don't allow me to be accused that I never voted for Musalia.
Okay.
I mean, that I need to say.
No, you'll have the forum next week.
Because I did, and I'm in court on the same. And I don't want to include other young people as defenders and defense.
Prof, you gave your closing remarks.
Yes. This is very important.
But we need vote.
Hotels announced Kenya empty plans. This is fantastic. Let me tell them that those plans should reach Kisumu.
They should reach Kisumu.
Yeah. not just
around Nairobi.
Not just around Nairobi. Thank you so much. So thank you for your valued company. And just to read also, Musila Mwoki saying, if leaders did their job to spur economic growth, deal with corruption, etc., no Kenya will follow them asking for fees et al. And also Biroki says, a leader is chosen to lead, not to impress. I want to thank you so much for Valet Company and also for our panelists this morning for that cogent discussion we just had. Also, for you driving the show with me on Twitter, thank you for your contribution. Really do appreciate. Living This is up next.